After every storm, there is a rainbow. This will be a testimony.
A few years ago, I was struggling really, really bad. I was in a dark place, a very, very dark place. I felt like I was in a cave. There was no light, there was no help, there was nothing. I was just in this cave by myself. And ironically, it was very uncomfortable, but also comfortable at the same time. Comfortable because I knew that there was nobody else there and it was okay for me to be there, but uncomfortable because it was painful, uncomfortable because it was lonely, uncomfortable because it was dark. And so oftentimes when I would show up to church, or when I would show up to my kids' school, or when I would show up to work, I would do little things to make sure that I would take the attention off of myself. And I didn't know how to get better. It was strange, it was really, really difficult for me. And I knew that my children were also suffering. I have two boys, Jeremiah and Caden, and they would often come into my room, probably around 5 or 6 o'clock, and they would just lay with me. They wouldn't talk, they wouldn't say anything, they would lay with me. And then when it was time for them to go to bed, they would leave the room and they would go to bed. And sometimes I'd hear them outside of my room saying, well, what should we do? Mom's still sad, Mom is still crying. And Jeremiah would say, let's just pray. And Jeremiah would pray for me, and then they would go to bed. And this happened probably every day for about a year and a half. So one day I got a call from Caden's school, Caden being my oldest, and the teacher said he threw a chair. And I was like, what do you mean he threw a chair? And she's like, I don't know, he just said he was angry and he threw a chair. And so when he came home, I said, Caden, what happened? Why did you throw a chair? And he said, Mom, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm tired of seeing you sad. There's this program in my neighborhood where the kids go on Wednesday nights. It's at a local church. And they do little events for the kids. Sometimes they have music and sometimes they have art. Well, this particular day, they had art, and Caden drew a picture of me. I was in the corner crying, and he was this big kid. He was just really big. And he was trying to draw himself big enough so that he could cover me because I was so sad and crying. And at that moment, I was like, God, I gotta come out of here. I gotta come out, like, where are you? And I remember that night after the kids went to bed, ugly cry, I mean, all the tears, the snot, everything, just crying and begging God that this place that I was in, I had to get out of it. In that situation, I had been dealing with some health issues. I had some concerns with my skin, and I had been going to this doctor, and the doctor kept saying, well, I don't know where it is, what it is, or where it came from, but just take this cream, and this cream is gonna make everything better. And so I would take the cream, it didn't change anything. So she said, well, let me give you a different one, and it didn't change anything. That happened about 3 or 4 times, and she just kept upping the dosage and making it a lot stronger, but nothing ever changed. And so I changed doctors, and this doctor said the same thing. I have no idea what this is. It looks odd. I don't know what it is, but try this cream. And I was like, I've tried this cream. And I showed her all the list of the creams that I had tried. And she said, well, you need to go to a specialist. So I go to a specialist, and the specialist says, this looks like squamous cell carcinoma. And I said, carcinoma? I may not know what squamous cell is, but I know what carcinoma means. And I said, okay. And she said, well, we'll have to do a biopsy because we need to find out what's going on underneath the skin. And I said, okay. But at that moment, I wouldn't even say I was terrified. She left out the room, she comes back, she does the biopsy, and she leaves, and she says, I'll call you with the results. My aunt had just died, and she died of cancer. A few weeks prior to that, a cousin of mine was just diagnosed with the same type of cancer that the doctor just told me that I could potentially have. And I said, God, if we're gonna do this, let's do this. And so I wrote a letter to myself. I was sitting in my room, and I said, I just need to get this out. So the letter says, after every storm, there's a rainbow. This will be a testimony. And I put a little heart, and I signed my name to it. I closed the envelope, and I put it on my dresser. And I said, one day we're gonna open this, and one day this is going to be shared somewhere. I didn't know when, I didn't know how or why, but I knew that it needed it to be done. And it was an encouragement to me while I waited for these results to come. And so I think there was some wonder in waiting. There was that, the waiting also helped me, prepared me, got me closer to God, and allowed me really to listen to Him. Because even though that dark place happened for me, I wasn't very much out of the dark place. I was still there, but God was still working on me even in that dark place through this whole moment. And so I'm happy to report that the results came back and I do not have squamous cell carcinoma. Everything did come back clear. I ended up going to 2 specialists after that, and both of those specialists said that there was nothing there. They couldn't see anything that had been seen multiple times by several doctors, but it was gone. Everything was cleared up. And to this day, I'm still good. Everything is all cleared up. I was so convinced that I had to protect my heart from people, and I had to protect, I guess, me from people. And I was always concerned about what people could see from me. That was why I was dressing up. That's why I was wearing the shoes or the blazer or whatever it was. I didn't want people to see that my inside was dark, that I was sad, that I was hurting, that I was in a really, really difficult place. And ironically, the doctor said, we have to do this biopsy because we need to find out what's going on underneath your skin. And it didn't make much sense to me at that moment. But God really wanted to work on what was underneath all the things that I was trying to protect, all of the things I was trying to make up and I was covering. God literally was working underneath the skin. I think that even though I'm not in the cave anymore, if I'm honest, I still have those cave moments. But when I do have those moments, I just remember that God is still concerned about me. God is still working on me. God, you called me blessed a long, long, long time ago. And so I think when those voices start to be a little louder in my head, I know that I could just give God back his word, and he makes it a lot easier for me.